Hi everyone, this is Ramalinga Prasad Kuppa. Welcome to my channel, Pharma World. Today's topic is review of batch production record as per section 6.7 of ICH Q7. Let us see the requirement. Section 6.70 prescribes written procedures should be established and followed for the review and approval of batch production and laboratory control records, including packaging and labeling, to determine compliance of the intermediate or API with established specifications before a batch is released or distributed. This section prescribes to have a detailed written procedure for review and approval of the BPR. The detailed procedure should include intricate details of the data that is to be reviewed in great detail for production operations, laboratory operations, the online servers, log browsers data, packaging details, etc. All this review should happen before the batch is released to the market. This review should establish that the correct product goes out into the market. Section 6.71 prescribes batch production and laboratory controls records of critical process steps should be reviewed and approved by the quality units before an API batch is released or distributed. Production and laboratory control records of non-critical process steps can be reviewed by qualified production personnel or other units following procedures approved by the quality units. Section 6.71 is tricky. There is a clause on flexibility of the data for review. Only the critical data should be reviewed by quality units. Other data could be reviewed by another section. This system of review should also be approved by the quality units. But it is very important that there should be clarity on the classification of critical steps and non-critical steps. Classification may be cumbersome, so the pharmaceutical industry practices that all the steps of the BPR be reviewed by quality units only. Effectively, this flexibility would expand the responsibility of other sections of the manufacturing for getting the quality product. Section 6.72 prescribes all deviation, investigation and OOS reports should be reviewed as part of the batch record review before the batch is released. So this section prescribes that all these critical items be reviewed satisfactorily before the batch is released to the market. Section 6.73 prescribes the quality units can delegate to the production unit the responsibility and authority for release of the intermediates, except for those shipped outside the control of the manufacturing company. See the section 6.73. As long as the intermediates are used for captive consumption, the review and approval could be done by a responsible person from the production units itself. The exception is that it should be used within the same company only and not to be marketed. Let us start review of BPR. The step 1 will be check the name of the product and version number of the BPR and confirm whether or not it is correct and current version. The BPR used should be for the specific product and current version. For routine checks, follow the sequence as given below. Check the availability of all pages individually, 1 of n to n of n. Check individually all pages and confirm that all pages are in place. Generally, the BPR contains large number of pages, maybe 10 to 20 pages or even more depending upon the process requirement. One important point is that each page of the BPR should reflect the name of the product or code number along with version number from first page to the last. It must be included as a header or footer as per convenience. Check for necessary attachments of raw material indent slips, in-process test result slips, intermediate test reports, final product test reports, deviation reports if any. Check all attachments listed here for objective evidences. Check the start date and completion date of the process from first step to the last step. So check the start date and completion date of the process. The start date cannot be before the BPR issue date. Check with the QA issue register for authentication. For step 2 review, follow the given sequence. Check individual sequential steps for correct timings, correct charges of materials at various stages, any temperature monitoring, pH monitoring, etc. Compare with the standard requirement or relevant SOP. Check whether or not these operations were carried out as per the standard requirement. Check if all the doer signatures and checker signatures are affixed at appropriate spaces. Check if there are any missing signatures. Check in particular the continuous monitoring records such as temperature monitoring records over a period of time with a frequency of 1 hour or half an hour. Count the number of entries and the number of signatures. If they don't tally, it means that the operator had signed off retrospectively after the end of the temperature monitoring step. Such data is not contemporaneous. This is falsification of data. Reconcile the quantities of raw materials used at different times in the process by adding up of all subdivided parts used. Some raw materials, particularly the solvents, will be used in several steps. Add up all subdivided quantities and tally with the total quantity received from the warehouse. Check for compliance of in-process step results against the in-process test slips at various stages of the process. Check for compliance of in-process monitorings with the help of QC test slips. Also check if the next step of the process is initiated only after the in-process result is available in writing. Check for yields at various stages of the process and confirm whether or not they are within acceptance criteria. Check the yields at various stages of the process and compare with the standards. Check the quality attributes of the intermediate for compliance to specifications if isolated and before usage in the next step of the process. Check the quality attributes of the final product for compliance to specifications. So here also check the compliance to quality attributes for isolated intermediates and final products. Check for any deviations, equipment swap, process delays, abnormalities, etc. Recorded the relevant CAPA reports for closeout and compliance. Review the deviation reports also satisfactorily at this stage. So far, we did only limited checks in the BPR in step 1 and 2. Let us see how a detailed check is done in step 3. In step 1 and 2, the review is limited. This scheme of review works only when the process is in a validated status and all necessary GMP is followed. So this step 1 and 2 type of review works only when the data evaluated statistically with Six Sigma, X bar graphs, moving range charts, etc. and confirm that the process is under total control and in a validated status following all GMP requirements. Validated status should be established by statistical evaluation of all critical data for compliance. So, as told above, the evaluation should be statistical. In step 3, a detailed review of the peripheral issues of the compliance will be done. So, the step 3 is a detailed review type looking into other leading peripheral issues. Detailed review can be designed with a definite frequency. If the statistical evaluation data is strong, objective evidence for routine compliance, the detailed review could be done with a definite frequency. It could be after a certain number of batches or a specific period like weekly or monthly, etc. Let us see how the detailed checks are done. Check the validity of the calibration status of the process instruments. In step 3 review, validity of the monitoring instruments like temperature probes, pressure gauges should be checked for active status during the process of the particular batch. That means these monitors should be in calibrated status at that time. This may be checked with the maintenance department records as generally they maintain these records. Check the preventive maintenance status of the process equipment for compliance. So similarly, the preventive maintenance records and other related records should be checked for active status. Check the training records of the chemists who are involved in the process and confirm that they are trained to operate the particular step. This is important. As per the section 3 of ICH Q7, each person responsible for the activity should be trained, updated and the records available for review. Since the personal records will be maintained by HR and updated from time to time, the required training data may be obtained from them. If there is a different system of maintaining training records by a separate training department, the data may be obtained from the training department also. Check the attendance records of the process chemists to confirm their presence during the operation. This also is very important. This reflects the integrity of the data entry. The attendance generally maintained by the gate office, which is a part of the HR department. So this data can be obtained from gate office. If there is any instance where the record that was supposed to be recorded by a person is not at site at the time of activity, you are in serious trouble. Check the approval status of the raw materials with QC records. Also check whether or not the supplier was from approved list of vendors. In this step, you may have to go to QC for data. Check whether or not the raw materials were tested and approved before use in the process. Also, it is necessary to check the approval status of the material supplier. Check the training records of the QC analysts for the raw materials used in the process. As done earlier, the training records of the analysts who performed the testing and release of the materials should be checked for compliance. Check the validity of the traceable standards used for testing. So standards may be checked for validity at that time of analysis to confirm that the analyst used the valid standard for testing the materials. check the calibration and qualification status of laboratory equipment. The instruments that were used for testing should also be in a state of calibration and preventive maintenance. So check for that data also. Check also the attendance records of the analysts at that time of testing. Same strategy as described above should be adopted here too for attendance records of the particular analysts who carried out these testing of raw materials. Let us see how we develop a strategy for routine checks and detailed checks of BPRs. Design a detailed checklist for review process of the BPR for step 1 and 2 with a main focus to check the compliance to GMP. For routine checks, design a comprehensive checklist to cover all leading questions while reviewing the BPR. Never design for yes or no answers. The answer to the checkpoint should be descriptive type. Any additional peripheral issues also have to be checked when there is an element of suspicion. If there is an element of doubt on any compliance, the query should lead to another peripheral question for answer. Design the frequency by number of batches or a time frequency for step 3, detailed review of the BPR based on the evaluation of statistical data. Frequency of detailed check could be done once a week or fortnight or monthly depending upon the validated status of the process as evaluated by statistical analysis. Frequency could also be based on the number of batches. For example, once in 10 batches or 20 batches. Frequency for every 10 batches is easier to remember because as a thumb rule, any batch number ending with a 0 should be selected for detailed review. Design a similar detailed checklist for step 3 review process. So the checklist for detailed review should be more elaborate. The checklist should focus all the peripheral issues that were discussed in the earlier slides in addition to the routine checks. Let us see other important features that should be considered for handling of BPRs. As per the GMP guideline, the batch production record should be completely reviewed to the satisfaction for compliance before the batch is released. The review should be before the release of the batch to the market. This is to establish that all data pertaining to that batch is completely reviewed satisfactorily and confirm that the batch is ready for dispatch to market. After this step only, the batch should be approved to move out. If there are any unresolved issues exist, they should be closed scientifically and completely. Obviously, all the pending issues have to be closed out satisfactorily. The entire docket containing the BPR, COA of the batch, specimen label of the batch for finished product should be a part of the final docket. All these items should be archived as a single docket for easy retrieval and review if required. Many would file the OVS investigations, deviations, etc. as separate file. This is also acceptable as long as the retrieval is effective and timely for any review. The entire docket should be preserved 1 year after the expiry of the product for any reference. The file should be protected well with control on access as it has to be retained for long period. As per regulatory requirements, also the inspectors may request any docket for the last few years depending upon the shelf life. So inspectors will Ask for data from at least 3 years if required. For finished product BPR, it is necessary to carry out the label reconciliation for the labels used. Separate SOP is required for label reconciliation. The finished product labels are like signed off blank checks. If not reconciled, it can be misused and you will end up in more serious problems. The reconciliation is like a accounting balance sheet. The inputs and outputs should tally completely. All these aspects have to be part of the detailed label reconciliation procedure. Checking for cleaning records is also a part of BPR checking with a defined frequency, example batch to batch, monthly cleaning, quarterly cleaning, etc. This is another important information for review of BPR. Check whether or not the cleaning records for routine and frequency cleaning reflect the cleaning activities of the equipment. Checking of environmental monitoring records for clean rooms. Environmental checks for clean rooms should include evaluation of non-viable particle count at least once in 6 months. Confirm that the air handling systems are in qualified status during the manufacture of that particular batch. Other data of air pattern, pressure differentials, viable particle count, etc. have to be checked as per the schedule. Check that such preventive maintenance schedules cover the time period of the manufacture of that particular batch. Checking of line clearance documents. Line clearance records for multi-purpose manufacturing activities have to be checked. This will be generally done for dosage forms. IPQ observations may be considered for any future improvements. So IPQ observations may be considered for any improvements in the system in future. I hope you got a good insight into the salient features of the BPR review and handling of the BPR. Review your BPR review system for all these features and modify accordingly. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please do subscribe, like and share. Thank you.